The Cooper and Anthony Show. Because sometimes you need a psychologist, and sometimes you just need someone dumber than you to make you feel better about your life choices.
Everybody's so focused on politics and primaries and all the boring stuff. I think you may have missed I'm not going to say my favorite story because it's kind of a crazy story, but maybe the craziest news story of the week. Did you hear about the guy who bought the house in Connecticut and it had dead bodies in it?
Like in the basement or in the walls? In the attic?
That would be even crazier. Like if he showed up and they were like hidden in the walls or something, that would be bizarre. But I think this is equally bizarre. So there's a house in Burlington, Connecticut, kind of like a rural area of Burlington. So this house goes into foreclosure. This guy buys the house in foreclosure. So he bought it, kind of cheap. He shows up the first day, takes ownership of the house, walks in, and there's 3 dead bodies in there.
What, just like on the couch?
Yeah, just like kind of, hanging around. They didn't say where, but it didn't sound like they were hidden. They weren't, it wasn't like somebody had put them in the walls or in the basement or anything you suggested. So he calls the cops and the cops show up, the detectives show up and they say, we don't suspect foul play. We don't see, we don't know what the manner of death is. But the cause of death is not murder. So, manner of death is like whether you were shot, you had a heart attack, that kind of thing. But the cause of death, that's, murder, suicide, natural causes. Mm-hmm. So they determine that it's definitely not murder. They don't see any bullet wounds. They don't see any broken hyoid bones. Nobody was choked. They don't find any stab wounds in the bones. And the 3 bodies are pretty skeletal at this point. So they do a deep dive into what's been going on. In 2024, so let me go back even further. In 2019, a couple bought that house. And they were, living in the house and paying their mortgage every month. They do like a regular payment out of their checking account right into the mortgage. November 2024, they stop paying the mortgage. It just automatically stops. And then either they don't pay it in December, they don't pay it in January. So the bank starts sending them, hey, where are you letters? Where's our money?
Are you dead or are you alive? What's going on?
Right, but sending letters like, where's our money? And here's a fee, and here's another fee, and what's going on? Bupkis, nothing. And the bank, it's so funny. Like if you just suddenly stop paying your mortgage, nobody at the bank is like, well, they've been paying this mortgage for 10 years, no problem. Maybe they're dead. Maybe we should do some kind of, welfare check, call the cops. No, they just keep sending them more fees and whatever. And then finally the house goes into foreclosure. And that's when the guy buys the house. So they say to the neighbors, you didn't notice that your neighbors suddenly were just not around? Like, yeah, well, they pretty much keep to themselves. And we noticed they're not around. And then, winter 2025, we noticed like it was a pretty bad winter and they didn't plow their driveway. And we just thought, hope they're okay. And somebody went to the door, knocked on the door. Nobody answered. They're like, oh, well, I guess they're not home. Mm-hmm. So when the bank decides to put a house in foreclosure, they send a foreclosure guy. And it's his job to take photos of the house and see what's going on. That guy, he said, I couldn't find the driveway. It was so overgrown. Also did not bother to go inside the house. All the photos of the house were just the outside of the house. Again, nobody went inside the house. Nobody called the police. Nobody said, can we do a welfare check? I haven't seen my neighbors in 2 years.
Mm. Well, I haven't seen my neighbors in 2 years either. I'm not going to go knock on their door. I'm just happy that they're not bugging me. These people over here, I see them all the time. These people over here, I don't know if they're dead or alive.
Well, are there cars in and out of their driveway?
I don't know. I don't look. I don't care.
Right, you don't care. That says something about this couple. That none of their neighbors were like, oh, we haven't seen them. We should go check on, Marge and Herbert and make sure they're okay. No, nobody cared. And then also, who's the third body? Who's the third body? Why is there a third body there? That's the really wacky part of it. Like, so did they all commit suicide together? Did they have some kind of special needs child who lived with them, and once they died, the special needs kid couldn't be cared for and they died? Like, because that's kind of what happened with Gene Hackman and his wife.
Right.
So the wife was caring for Gene Hackman and their dog who had just been through surgery. So she dies. he's left on his own. You know, he doesn't really talk to his own kids. His wife's taking care of him. So he dies because the wife who was taking care of him had died, you know, young, in her 60s. And the dog was dead because there was nobody there to take care of the dog either.
Yeah, he's probably downstairs ringing the bell. Like, tea, give me tea. And nobody's coming. Then he's like, Spot. Spot's not coming.
Nope.
So, yeah, poor guy. I bet it was carbon monoxide.
You would think, except they sent a team to check to see if there was carbon monoxide, and they said no, 0. There was no carbon monoxide. So carbon monoxide was not the culprit either.
Well, you don't know because he hasn't paid the gas bill in 2 years, so they turned the gas off. Of course there's no CO.
I think they did check the bodies enough to see if there was carbon monoxide in their bloodstream or in their whatever's left, whatever's hanging off their skeletal remains.
It's Connecticut. They're looking for bullet wounds. If they don't see that, they're like, I don't know.
Fine. Yeah.
Put it up for sale. Now, if you knew that, would you move into that house?
No, I wouldn't.
So you would say, no, there was dead people in here for 2 years. I'm not buying. Even if it's at a discounted price, you're not moving in.
Well, no, but think the type of person who buys a house in foreclosure doesn't care about that sort of thing. They're buying the house. Whatever, you know, the house was sold as is. Literally, it says in the seller's documents as is. So as is, he just thought it meant like, you know, the kitchen needs an upgrade. He didn't realize there were 3 skeletal remains laying in the living room.
You're not going to remove these? That's strange.
I don't think I wouldn't buy a house in foreclosure to begin with, because to me that's already bad juju. It's like, what happened here? These people couldn't pay their mortgage and ended up going into foreclosure. Like, what a sad situation. I don't want to profit off somebody else's misery.
I'm a cheap bastard. So if it's a really good deal, if it's like $1 a square foot and the neighbor is $5,000 a square foot, I'm going to be like, yeah, I'll throw some paint on it. Be done.
Well, that's what happened to my ex-husband. That's why he ended up living in the Martha Moxley house. And if you don't know that story, it's the girl who was murdered by the skeletal kid. The Kennedy kid in Greenwich, again, Connecticut, of course, in Greenwich, Connecticut. But the thing is, they have to disclose to you if there's a body inside the house or a murder inside the house. The thing is, she was murdered on the property outside the house by a tree. So they don't have to disclose that. So when my ex-father-in-law bought the house, he was like, why is this house so cheap in this very nice neighborhood? He had no idea. I was like, wow, this house is really going it's a good deal. And it's because there was a murder that took place right there in the tree, right in front of your front door.
If somebody tells you, all right, somebody was killed, probably 90% of the houses on Long Island had somebody die in the house.
Well, listen, most places somebody died, unless you have brand new construction. I mean, anything that you're moving into that's been there for a while. Right. You know, like the building I live in right now was built in the 70s. I mean, people probably died in my apartment or near, you know, people definitely died in the building. I've been here when people died in the building. I've been here when EMS shows up and they're like, oh, your neighbor in 4J, yeah, died. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so how many people died in your apartment now?
Yeah, well, no, it's different because when I got here, the bodies weren't still here. they had removed them when we moved in.
Oh, and they did the scrub thing on the floor.
Yeah, there were no skeletal remains when I moved in. Yeah.